All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Gems of War video. In this video, I have for you my scouting report for Bright Forest Week beginning on May 6th, 2024. You can see Bright Forest is right on the screen on the overworld map near the southeast corner, kind of more south than east. And in the underworld, Bright Forest's faction, Sunken Fleet, is also near the southeast corner of the map. So let's talk about both Bright Forest and Sunken Fleet. So Bright Forest is a nature kingdom, and its skill point bonus is life. So for most of us, if you're looking at taking Bright Forest to level 20, it will put Bright Forest behind in priority Zul'Kyri, which gives us a magic point bonus, and also Forest of Thorns, which gives us an attack point bonus. It may also, for some of us, put Bright Forest behind both Seijin and Maugrim Woods, since both of those kingdoms can already reach the maximum power of 30. However, Bright Forest is not that far away as we enter Bright Forest Week. You can see that I'm showing the maximum power going from 27 to 28 to 29. And the reason I want I need to explain that a little bit, because as you're watching this video, of course, it is Stormheim Week, because these videos come out 1 week early. And as a result, our new holiday event is out right now. And that holiday event will bring Bright Forest maximum power from 27 to 28 as we add the new base legendary to the game. Now, once Bright Forest Week begins, we will add yet another troop to the game, and that troop will bring Bright Forest's maximum power to 9. We'll still need one more troop after that in order to get all the way to where we need to go. But at least we'll be at 29, and we'll only need one more troop for it to get to the maximum of 30. As for the hero class Hierophant, the traits are not super powerful, but the talent trees are very useful, particularly for Bright Forest teams, because you can get all the way to champion level 100. You will be able to select Eternal Summer as the last trait, which gives all Fey allies 2 life at the start of every turn. You'll also get some good bonuses that apply very well to red mana along the way. So Hierophant's actually a pretty good class to max out. As for the trait stone that's available in Bright Forest, that is the Arcane Venom trait stone. It is the same one that's available in Zul'Kyri, so you'll still be able to grind for that trait stone during Bright Forest Week if you need to do so. Now, as for the Sunken Fleet, which is our faction that will be the focus of the faction assault on Tuesday, its restriction is blue or red, which shouldn't be a particularly hard one. As for the troops that are available in Sunken Fleet, it begins and almost ends with the Miraji Queen, which is the legendary troop you can get in Sunken Fleet. The Miraji Queen has a very important trait, which is the third trait, Drowned Crew, in which all elemental allies start with 50% mana. This is absolutely vital if you want to make one of those fast attacking Rowan teams, or if you just want to make sure that all your elemental allies start with 50% mana. Overall, it is an absolutely must-have troop. It probably should be one of the troops that you try to go for first once you unlock the Underworld. If you have the Underworld unlocked and you do not have the Miraji Queen, I would say drop everything and get it now. Once you get the Miraji Queen unlocked, you can go back to doing whatever. The only other Sunken Fleet troop that I think is Worth noting is the water elemental. That one can be situationally good. So I do recommend that you unlock that one as well. Everything else can wait until you're ready to go for a pure faction run. Okay, so let's start. Let's look at the core 4 and 4 more teams. Now the core 4 team is as usual is going to be the same as your trials team. And this is the order that I had them in when I defeated the epic trials. So first we have the Summer Knight, which is a rare troop. Summer Knight destroys a row and then gains a number of armor and attack that's based on your magic, boosted by red gems destroyed at a ratio of ×2, and then gains barrier. This is very important, particularly for newer players, because this gives you an ability to make that attack as high as you potentially want it to be, as well as gaining barrier, which automatically cancels the next attack that does damage to Summer Knight. And on top of all that, our third trait is Holy Armor, which reduces damage from skulls by 40%. That plus the barrier that she gains by casting her spell will not only will not only boost her attack, and you want to have her at the top of your team, just like you see right here, but the barrier and Holy Armor will also keep her on the top of your team for as long as possible. So as long as you don't put her up against a team that can jumble your roster, should be good to go. The next one, in the order that I put them in, is Queen Titania. Queen Titania is base legendary, so this is not going to be one of the easiest ones to get, and you may have to open event chests to try to get her if you do not already have her. She does damage to all enemies, boosted by red enemies and allies at a ratio of ×4. And if there are 13 or more red gems, she gains an extra turn. In addition, her most important trait, of course, is her third one, which she fairy fires a random enemy on 4 or 5 gem matches. For those who need a refresher, Fairy Fire basically allows a spell to do 50% more damage if that troop is affected by Fairy Fire. So in this particular case, Summer Dream, depending on how the game rounds, would either do an additional 21 or 22 damage to an enemy affected by Fairy Fire and 43 to else. The next one is the Leprechaun. Leprechaun is ultra rare, so not easy enough to get in the gold chests, but still not terribly hard to get. Leprechaun explodes a certain number of gems boosted by your gold, and then you gain 20 gold. And the boost ratio by your gold is 10-1, so that at the maximum would only add another 10 green gems that it explodes. As for the traits, you get more gold on 4 or 5 gem matches, which is kind of nice. Nature Link, which gives you more green mana from green gem matches, which is kind of nice. And Empowered, which is awesome, because you will see a lot of meta players using Leprechaun all the time. And the reason the way that you use it, you put Leprechaun on your team. Leprechaun starts off fully empowered. You use a spell to explode all those green gems, and it's probably not going to be boosted by any gold that you currently have, but the Leprechaun can fast start some of your team to the point that you might actually be able to fully charge one of your other troops and then just kind of go from there. So yeah, Leprechaun is absolutely insane. You absolutely need to make sure that you unlock him. Then the last one is Florian. Florian is ultra rare. Florian drains up to 12 mana from an enemy, then creates green gems equal to the mana drained. So if she drains 12 mana, then she puts 12 green gems on the board. She summons a leaf storm when an enemy dies, which is a green storm, and a bunch of other things. As far as the Trials team, she's not going to be all that useful because the green gems that she's going to generate is really only going to go right into the Leprechaun. Still okay, but if you are going to use Florine in this team, what I recommend you try to do, you try to cast her and then cast Leprechaun right afterward, because you're adding a lot of green gems with Florine on generating those gems, and then you just kind of hope the other team doesn't match them off the board. And if they don't, then you can just use Leprechaun to generate a lot of mana, probably for these two. Remember that exploding the gems not only destroys the green gems themselves, but destroys the gems that surround it, and you gain 50% of the mana that is generated from destroying all of those gems. So by blowing up, by using Leprechaun's spell, you can potentially get Summer Night and or Queen Titania ready to cast. So that's kind of how I did the core 4 team. The 4 more team, select the right team here, are the four troops that I suggest that you go and acquire, as far as either by the event chest or by looking for them in the Soul Forge. The Soul Forge in particular for the Mythic, because I don't like recommending trying to go for Mythics from the event chests. The first one I'm going to recommend is Child of Summer. Child of Summer is an epic troop. Like the Leprechaun, Child of Summer starts battles with full mana. She converts brown gems to red. There aren't going to be a lot of Bright Forest troops that require brown, so that's a good gem to get rid of. And then she also conjures a Firestorm. Firestorm will help a lot of your troops. I like pairing Child of Summer with Queen Titania because she generates a lot of red, both by the conversion and also by the Firestorm. I also like the fact that you know exactly what gems are going to be converted, so you can look at the patterns to see if converting the brown to red is going to give you all the mana you need, or failing that, if it's going to give you a 4 in a row, which allows you to continue your turn. King Oberon is another legendary, and I would say again, if you don't have him, you might want to open up event chests to see if you can get him. King Oberon has one of my favorite traits. You've probably seen these before. We kind of covered it with the Miraji Queen for elementals, but this one is for Fey allies. So Lord of Summer, all Fey allies start with 50% mana. That means so that is going to help almost all of your Bright Force. He gives a certain amount of life and 5 magic to all allies, then creates a Firestorm and enchants all Fey allies. So enchant means that each of your Fey allies will gain 2 mana at the start of every turn until they cast their spell. And of course, this scaling magic can help quite a bit. 5 is not a whole lot of magic, but it does help. Particularly if it's cast over and over again. You can add him on a team to Queen Titania. I would put him below Queen Titania so that you're not blocking Queen Titania on red. But even below Queen Titania, you'll still be able to match green gems to get to him. Next, we also have Forenza. Forenza is another base legendary. Doesn't give you any 50% start for mana, but she does create 1 Fairy Fire gem when her turn begins, and her spell does damage to all enemies, boosted by Fairy Fire gems. And then she summons the Summer Night, which we talked about already. So you'll already be making that Summer Night available to you. She can just make your team very, very hard to kill by having that, by resummoning the Summer Night. Should you happen to lose the Summer Night, And on top of that, she does damage to all enemies, and she boosts by Fairy Fire Gems. So the more Fairy Fire Gems that are out there, of course, the more damage she does. But of course, she's also damaged. You get the idea. As for the recommended legendary for Bright Forest, I will point out that Emeraldrin is the gem dragon is the green gem dragon that you'll acquire on your way to acquiring Diamantina. So you'll probably get this one anyway, unless you have given up on Diamantina and are going straight for Stellaryx. The other troops are available on a rotating basis in the Soul Forge. I don't recommend getting the mythics through the event chests, in case I didn't say that before. But not counting the Gem Dragon, the one I will recommend is Vernalis. Vernalis gives a certain amount of attack to the first two allies, so that could give even more attack to Summer Knight in the first position. He also gives the same amount of life to the two weakest allies, keeping them in the game, and then also gives 10 magic to the two strongest allies. So this can make your team really, really good. He also has Nature Link, which is a very good trait to have. He also entangles and fairy fires a random enemy when matching green gems. This is good, particularly if you're not going to be using Elementalist class with the team that he's in, because you'll still be able to occasionally entangle the first troop and set their attack to 0 until they recover. But Fairy Fire is very important as well. I could have gone with Suna. Suna is also a very good troop as well. Fountain of Stars, I feel, is a little too niche to recommend as a first mythic. But I think if you've got Vernalis or Suna as your first mythic, I think you're going to be just fine. So let's talk about the weapons that are available in Bright Forest. I will give a quick nod to Dawnbringer. Dawnbringer is a really good weapon to get. However, keep in mind that Dawnbringer is always available, so it is not necessary to break the bank to try to get Dawnbringer during Bright Forest week. Anyway, so some of the other weapons that are worth going for if you happen to see them in the Soul Forge, and keep in mind if you are going to shoot for it all and try to get the power as high as you can, then you need to just forget everything I say about the weapons and get all of them. But the Fairy Ring deals damage to an enemy boosted by Fey allies, then creates a mix of 6 green and purple gems for each Fey ally. That is going to help most of your possible Bright Forest teams to do really well. We've also got the Summer Aegis, which deals damage to an enemy boosted by Bright Forest allies, then creates a mix of 6 green and red gems for each Bright Forest ally. Again, a pretty good one. I think that this one ends up being a little bit more valuable than the Fairy Ring, but feel free to get either one you want. This one is a little bit better for later game players. It explodes green gems and grants a random status effect to all Fey allies, and then summons a Fey troop. Again, I like these weapons more when you have a lot of the troops that can be summoned, maxed out and ready to go. You also have this one, which is not particularly useful for Bright Forest, but is useful for other lineup. This one explodes purple gems, grants a random status effect to all Mystic allies, and summons a Mystic troop. If you look at the upgrades, you can see one of my all-time favorites, Enchanting, which automatically enchants your hero if you happen to cast it. But overall, you're not going to be making a lot of Bright Forest Mystic teams. You might make, you will have some Bright Forest troops that also count as mystics. But this is usually better for other kingdoms. As for the faction weapon, the faction weapon is Last Harbor. Last Harbor does damage to the first enemy, boosted by Doom Skulls at ×3. If the enemy is elemental, it deals double damage and knocks them to the last position. Or if you've been looking a lot at, I think all but one of the faction troops for Sunken Fleet are elementals, so you'll get that double damage frequently, or if you use that against the Sunken Fleet, but you probably won't. Overall, it's a nice weapon to have. It's a nice to have. It's not an absolute necessity. So if you can't afford to craft this in the Soulforge on Tuesday, and you can't afford to buy up to the tier that gives you Last Harbor, don't worry about it. As for the other ones, the class weapon is extremely useful, and if you have this weapon, you're gonna be coasting through a lot of the content in Bright Forest. Summer's Wonder does true scatter damage boosted by Fey allies and enemies at a whopping ×8. And if an enemy dies, it grants all allies 2 random positive status effects. And it's enchanting. It's a really good weapon to have. However, of course, it is only really useful if you have a Fey team. Failing that, it can also be useful if you're up against a Fey team. But yes, it's a good weapon to have. You'll probably end up you'll probably earn this weapon anyway. But once you do, make sure to temper it up so you get it at its maximum. Anyway, the last weapon to talk about is the Doomed Weapon. I forgot to research how to pronounce that, but it does damage to the last enemy boosted by green gems, and if they have a doom, it deals double damage. And then there's a 3% chance per tempering level to kill the enemy. So if you have this weapon at the full tempering level of 10, which you can see here right now, then there's a 30% chance to kill the enemy after the damage is applied. It does happen fairly regularly, and I do think it's a reasonable weapon to go for. It's probably not gonna be your go-to weapon as far as doomed green weapons, and it might not even be in the top half, but it's certainly an okay weapon to get. Overall, I have a feeling you're going to be crafting this weapon should you need the doomed weapon to get your kingdom power up. Talked about the class, so we'll move over to the pets. The kingdom pet for Bright Forest is the Kitsith. So you have the regular one and the starry one, both of which will give you a kingdom bonus. Feyre gives you a team bonus based on Fey, so that will be added on should you have at least 3 unique Fey on your team. Forenza's Flower gives skill points to Forenza if she is on your team. And then Shimmer Scale's Egg does the same thing for Shimmer Scale. And then after that, the only other one to look at is Minnow. Minnow is the pet that you'll get by completing the Sunken Fleet faction. And I think that is about it. The World Quest is going to be the guild event for the week. So there's really nothing I could say about how to prepare for that because it could literally be anything. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. Consider subscribing to this channel and or following me on Twitch if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more. In the comments below, let me know what you think of the Bright Force Kingdom or the Sunken Fleet faction. I'll see you in the next video.